Okay, so let's have another reading this week. All of us know that change is coming. And sometimes change is coming a lot faster than we want it to. But deep down inside, I feel that the majority of people that I'm with and know, they know that something real and change is coming. And it's coming fast. Ken Wilber talked about this quite a few years ago. You can watch some of his videos on YouTube, Ken Wilber, and read some of his books. Really incredible, really interesting guy. He has his faults, but interesting guy, to say the least. But he said we're reaching an apex, like the top of a pyramid. And when we get there, we don't really know what could happen. Could be great, could be devastating, we don't know. But change is coming nevertheless. There's lots of facts out there, and I always encourage everybody to educate themselves, because we know that, most of the stuff that we're fed today is fed by other people and other people's opinions and their ideologies and so forth. But let's listen to a talk by Eckhart here about the urgency of transformation. Then I'll finish with some facts that I found out recently on my own that I think you'll find interesting as well. That gives a little perspective of what we can see and feel today. And the more we expand our consciousness, the more we expand our awareness, the more we see Maya. Maya is the grand illusion. It's explained in many different ways, but basically it's the veil that's put over us. It's hiding the truth from us. It's doing this cosmic dance so we stay in trance, so we stay kind of like sheep, like drones, lemmings, zombies, however you want to explain it, but basically kind of asleep. Some of the older yogis and elders in the traditions would call people walking bags of dead flesh. They're useless. They don't really do much. They kind of just follow wherever the trough is. They're not awake. We want to all awaken, so we have to awaken ourselves individually, and then as we each individually awaken, other people will awaken around us. Sooner or later, everybody will be awake, though. That'll happen. So, the urgency of transformation. When faced with a radical crisis, when the old way of being in the world, of interacting with each other and with the realm of nature doesn't work anymore, when survival is threatened by seemingly insurmountable problems, an individual life form or a species will either die or become extinct or rise above the limitations of its own condition through the evolutionary leap. We can see this happening, right? It is believed that the life forms on this planet first evolved in the sea, and then when there were no animals yet to be found on land, the sea was ready and teeming with life. Then at some point, one of the sea creatures must have started to venture onto dry land. It would perhaps crawl a few inches at first, then exhausted by an enormous gravitational pull of the planet, it would return to the water where gravity is almost non-existent, and where it could live with much greater ease. And then it tried again and again and again, and much later would adapt to life on land, grow feet instead of fins, develop lungs instead of gills. It would seemingly, unlike the species, would venture into such an alien environment and undergo an evolutionary transformation unless it was compelled to do so by some crisis situation. There must have been a large sea area that got cut off from the main ocean, where the water gradually receded over thousands of years, forcing the fish to live their habitat or evolve. Responding to a radical crisis that threatens our very survival of this humanity, this is humanity's challenge now. This is where we're at right now, is what Eckhart says. The dysfunction of the egoic human mind, recognized already more than 2,500 years ago by ancient wisdom teachers and now magnified through science and technology, is for the first time threatening the survival of the planet. Until very recently, transformation of human consciousness, also pointed by the ancient teachers, was no more than possibility. Realized by a few rare individuals here and there, introspectively, the culture or religious backgrounds. A widespread flowering of human consciousness did not happen because it was not yet imperative. Pretty imperative now, right? A significant portion of the Earth's population will soon recognize, if they haven't already done so, that humanity is now faced with a stark choice: evolve or die. A still relatively small but rapidly growing percentage of humanity already experiencing within themselves the breakup of the old egoic mind patterns and the emergence of a new dimension of consciousness. Like Ken was talking about, we're getting to that point. We're finding ourselves at this pivotal point in our lives where we are going to either change and evolve or something drastic is going to happen, right? I mean, we're the top of the evolutionary change. We don't have anything to fight, right? There's nothing else as badass as us, right? We can take each other out, which we've done. We're the only species on the planet. We're the only ones crazy enough to go and kill millions of ourselves. What's the point? I don't get it. What is arising now is not a new belief system, but a religion, a spiritual ideology, or mythology. We are coming to the end of not only the mythologies, but also of old ideologies and belief systems. The change goes deeper than the context of your mind, deeper than your thoughts. In fact, at the heart of the new consciousness lies the transcendence of thought, a newfound ability of rising above thought and realizing a dimension within yourself that is infinitely more vast than thought. You then no longer derive your identity, your sense of who you are, from incessant stream of thinking. That is the old consciousness you take to be yourself. What a liberation to realize that the voice in your head is not who you are. It's not who you are. Who am I then? The one who sees that, the witness, the awareness that is prior to thought, the space in which of thought, or the emotion or sense perception that happens? Ego is no more than the identification with form, which primarily means thought form. If evil has any reality, and it has a relative, not absolute reality, this is also its definition: complete identification with form, physical forms, thought forms, emotional forms. This results in the total unawareness of my collectedness with the whole, my intrinsic oneness with everything, everyone, all the time, with source everywhere. This forgetfulness is the original sin. This is what causes suffering, delusion. When this delusion of utter separateness underlies and governs whatever I think, say, and do, what kind of world do I create? To find this answer, to find it, observe how humans relate to each other, read a history book, or watch the news on television, right? You can see how they separate us, how their pain bodies, how their ego creates separation. It's being done everywhere around us. If the structures of the human mind remain unchanged, we will always end up recreating fundamentally the same world, the same evils, the same dysfunction. This happens in many ways. Greed, power, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? What do we see happening more and more often today? The consolidation of power, right? As of right now, in 2020, there's 6 major corporations that own 90% of everything we hear and watch and read in America. It's about 200 and something million people. So it's about, for every individual, there's about 232, 252 executives that work for those 6 major corporations. So one individual for those 6 major corporations that control 90% of all the media, there's 1 to every million people in the country. So one person gets to basically choose what 1 million people, 90% of what we watch, read, listen to. They own 70% of what we see on cable TV. They own 1,200 of the radio stations that we listen to. That's like something like 80, 85% of the radio we listen to, unless you still listen to AM. I don't know who really listens to that anymore, or who really even listens to too much FM radio. But they also own Sirius Satellite. They own all of the celestial radio. They own all of that. That's 80%. Oh, and by the way, they own 2/3 of all the movie studios. So 6 major corporations own 2/3 of all the movies that we watch. And in return, there's about 100 and I think 50 or 160 other movie studios. But 6 of them own 2/3 of it. And they all have pain bodies. They're all ego and power and greed and division. Let's take some other numbers into perspective before we close tonight. And I think these numbers are important because what we see happening today is fear created by these people who are fearful themselves. And they just perpetuate more fear. So they exacerbate numbers. Now, these are facts, and you can find these facts yourself on worldometers.info. This is a pretty incredible website that basically is constantly counting and creating percentages of a huge genre of things. But these are some that are pretty powerful and a little disturbing too. And these are numbers from January 1st of this year until March 25th of this year. From January 1st of this year to March 25th of this year are some of these numbers. And I don't mean to disturb you by these, but we have to hear some facts sometimes. What Eckhart's telling us is truth, but we have to find truth first. So it's important for us to hear these numbers and to realize this, okay? From January 1st to March 25th, there have been 9.9 million abortions on the planet. 2.5 million people have died from hunger. 2 million people have died from cancer. 1.2 million from smoking. 600,000 people from alcohol abuse. 400,000 from HIV and AIDS. 300,000 from traffic accidents. 250,000 from suicides. 230 from malaria. 230,000 from malaria. 115,000 from January 1st to March 25th of this year. Almost 120,000 people on the planet have died from the common flu. And to wrap it up, again, to give you perspective, 20,000 from the new strain of coronavirus that's going around right now. 20,000. Now, again, not to sound uncompassionate, but to use some dispassion, and it's important for us to have a little dispassion sometimes in subjects like this, especially when we're dealing with facts. These are all staggering numbers, and these are happening all the time on the planet, everywhere. It's an incredible amount of suffering that people are going through, and I don't mean to discount it, but the facts are the facts. And we need to take those numbers into perspective. Because otherwise, the fear and the fear-mongering and the panicness and the levels of uncertainty and all of this just spreads from person to person and creates a level of anxiety and stress that's no good for anybody. It doesn't help anybody. Friends, I hope you all take care. It's always an honor and a privilege to be part of this practice with you, to share these facts and this truth from all these masters and to educate yourself. It's important. All right? Have another great week. I'll see you soon. Namaste. See ya. Bye.